Hello, everyone. Welcome to another StuKent webinar. We're very excited to have you all on here. My name is Chad Gray. For those that don't know me, Product Marketing Manager here at StuKent. If you've been on a webinar with us before, you've probably seen my face. If not, it's nice to meet you. We do have Nick Mattar on here, but I'll introduce him in a little bit. We're excited to hear from him and hear about his presentation on how to create real-world content marketing experiences in your classroom. I'm anxious to hear what he has to say, as I'm sure all of you are as well. So let me just do a couple housekeeping items to start so we can get everyone on the same page, and then I'll go ahead and introduce him and get going on the presentation. So for starters, I'd love to have you all introduce yourselves in the chat here to the right. Let us know where you're from and what classes you teach. We're interested in getting to know you a little bit better and hearing where everyone's tuning in from. So let us know in the chat where you're from. The chat feature, you can, while you're typing, you can use the chat feature throughout the presentation. Feel free to type in any questions that you have or any comments, additional insights, whatever it may be. We want to make you guys feel as comfortable as possible interacting with Nick, and he'll do his best to answer those questions as they come in. But if not, we do have some time at the end for some Q&A. So feel free to use the chat as we go along here. So we got a few people chiming in. This is great. Becky from Kentucky, Beth from Oklahoma. My wife's from Oklahoma. So good to have a fellow Sooner on here, I'm assuming. If not, sorry, just kidding. Hi from Louisville, Kentucky. Let's see, Jeff, California, Michigan, Central Illinois, Alabama. Wow, we got people from all over. This is awesome. Jeff from Atlanta teaches digital marketing. I'm a Braves fan, so let's go Braves. This is great. Awesome. I'm so glad that you guys are all here and getting used to the chat and everything. Like I said, feel free to use it throughout the presentation. I am curious, we do have our author on here, Nick Matar. He's the author for our Content Marketing Strategies courseware. I am curious to know who on here either just chime in if you use the courseware or if you plan on using it, or if you never heard of it before. Let us know if you are familiar with his product here at StuKent. Just let us know what your familiarity is, I guess. More people chiming in with where they're from. Awesome. Okay, Jeff is not familiar. Awesome. I'll give it a minute for more people to let us know. Jennifer is also not familiar. Okay. Well, he will, wow, Beth also not familiar. Okay, Jeff is using StuKent for the first time this semester. Okay. Jeff, what are you using this semester? What product? Nanita, first time. I'm assuming you, Nanita, are saying this is the first time using content marketing strategies or StuKent in general. Okay, Jeff's using Digital Marketing Center Mimic Pro. Awesome. Cool. Well, everyone, it's good to get to know you a little bit. We're excited to share this presentation with you and help you all. Oh, there's two Jeffs. The joys of virtual meetings, right? That's going to be confusing. Anyway, we're happy to have you all on here. This is going to be awesome. So, like I said, we'll have Nick present for about 30 to 40 minutes, and he'll share his presentation on content marketing experiences in the classroom. And then we will save about 10 to 15 minutes at the end for Q&A. So stay tuned at the end if you have any questions that we haven't answered, or if you'd like to see what other people are asking. We'll save some time at the very end for that. But without further ado, I'll go ahead and introduce our main speaker for the day. We have Nick Matar, who has worked with content marketing since he was in high school, experimenting with his MySpace profile. He now teaches digital marketing at multiple universities across the United States and is the founder of Digital Detroit, a digital marketing training company based in Michigan. He received his MBA from Wayne State University in Detroit and his bachelor's degree in English and Communications from the University of Michigan. He lives in Southeast Michigan with his wife and 2 sons. And Nick enjoys watching and playing basketball, blogging about digital marketing, and reading classic literature. So without further ado, I will have Nick turn on his camera. There we are.
Hi, thanks,
Okay,
Chad.
take it away.
Thanks. So I'm actually at Stukin HQ today. Kind of random that I'm here visiting the Stukin team. I've met all sorts of great people over the last couple of days, and they've also set me up with this really cool place to present this webinar. So for me in Idaho, good morning. For my friends on the East Coast and my hometown and everybody, good afternoon, midday, whatever time it is for you. And thanks for tuning in here with me. My presentation is going to be all about good old classroom experiences, making your classroom more of a real world experience. I am curious to learn from people, like, what do you do right now in terms of real interaction with students? Is this something that you bring in guest speakers? Do you work with companies to have students review their digital marketing activities? I'm very interested to hear. I think might be a poll question about this. I'm also happy to see what you put in the chat as well, because I'm really looking to, first off, learn a little bit about all of you and seeing what you all do, and then how we can take that to the next level. So, my kind of thesis here is, how do we turn the classroom into an experience, but not just an experience for students, but also how do we make this where the class can become a series of resume builders? And that's really where we start today. I'm first going to give an analysis of today's job market. The digital marketing world is always changing, and I every year do a little survey of the LinkedIn job market. So we'll talk about that. How do we prepare students for their careers? And then 2 of our big takeaways at the end. Chad talked a little bit about me. I don't need to talk anymore about me, so we'll move on to the next slide. But I am the author of the content marketing courseware here at Stukin. This is not a pitch for content marketing whatsoever. These are just best practices for the classroom, at least things that I've experienced that I thought went really well. This is also a kind of a follow-up to my session from ProfCon that was earlier in the spring, summer, whatever season this is. And my big thing over the summer was talking about teaching entrepreneurial digital marketing, which was rooted in the idea of teaching students digital marketing where they want to be taught. And that is that everybody has a side gig, and that digital marketing really gives you an opportunity to get students to learn through building their own business. This is a little bit different today, but I first would like to kind of take a step back and show you this slide here. This is just a snip that I took of LinkedIn. So every year for the last 3 years now, I have looked at a series of 100, 150 job postings on LinkedIn that are specifically entry-level digital marketing jobs. And these are jobs that are ideal for students that take our courses, that are about to go into the real world, and to also, learn that, people that are getting ready for a career in what they believe is marketing, digital marketing, whatever. And whether you're teaching a business school class or a communications course or anything else, our students will go in and they'll probably follow this path. At some point, they're going to look at Indeed or LinkedIn, or maybe they have a network, or they've got a job lined up. They're going to apply and hopefully start their career from the ground up. Some of them have probably done internships. Some of them may have even had full-time jobs. I know most of my students work full-time while taking classes. And then their career they expect their career to take off from there. So what I do every year around this time, I start at the end of May, early June, and I do this search. I look at entry-level, full-time, now remote digital marketing jobs. And I go through, and this is nothing super scientific, but I take a look at what are all the job responsibilities? What are the qualifications? How many years of experience is required? I compile them all into a report. And this year, for the first time, I've actually put it into a designed PDF. I'm not much of a designer, but I try. And then I share my findings, and I try to use my findings and have that influence what it is that I am teaching in the classroom. And so that means I might put a little slant towards something that I've seen is more prevalent across these positions. Maybe de-emphasize some things that are not seen as much. And I know, again, this is nothing super scientific, but I just try to get a better idea for the national remote digital marketing job market. At any given time, you're going to see about 5,000 of these jobs. And I've posted jobs on LinkedIn before too. You're supposed to say, okay, this is entry level. Is this a director level? What is the level? And so I only look at jobs that are tagged as entry level and they're on LinkedIn. So again, convenience sampling, what have you. Yes, absolutely. But I try to follow a common path that a lot of job seekers take. Now, what I have found to be really interesting here is that when you have a remote job, people apply from everywhere in the country. Even if it's listed as remote and then you put in the job description, this is remote, but we'd like you to be in the office at least X days a week, or preference will be given to people that are located in the whatever area. Everybody applies. Everybody applies from everywhere. And for my company is Digital Detroit. And every year I go in and I try to hire. I put out an application job post for interns. I look for an intern. I pay a very nice hourly wage. Not looking for anything more than 10 hours a week. And each year, the number of applicants has doubled. First year I did it in the summer of 2019, I got about 50 applicants. 2020, it was a little bit later. I had about 100, 125. 2021 last year, I had 300. And this year, I just posted it. I actually just took it down and I cut it off at 500. 500 applicants for a digital marketing internship that paid hourly. 500 I had to close it. It was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm not going to look at 500. I don't have that kind of time. And I posted this, and it immediately prompted me to, what am I? I'm looking for entry level / I'm looking for a college student. And I have never seen such a busy market of job seekers. And again, this is an hourly internship position. What that really showed me is that the competition has never been greater. The competition has never been more intense. There have never been more people looking for these jobs. Now, there's plenty of jobs. There's 5,000 jobs at any given time in digital marketing. But the competition is significant, and that's, significant is an understatement, to be sure. So I created this report. I think Chad or somebody will make that available or share it with all of you so you can see it. But I really saw some interesting findings. I'm going to share a couple of those here with you today. Again, this is kind of setting the stage for the classroom piece that I have. First off, these are the top 5 job responsibilities that I saw. I looked at 150 positions on LinkedIn. The number one thing I saw was reporting. The ability not just to look at analytics, which is number 2, but the ability to take those numbers and turn them into something that has a narrative, that has a visual aspect, and something that you can show to either your superiors, the C-suite, a board of directors, something else. You really need to be able to show your successes. Now, you look down two points. Analytics is always among the top. It has been for all 3 years. This is the first time reporting has been among the top 5. It's also the first time that content marketing has appeared in the top 5, which holds a special place in my heart. But I was really surprised because many positions may not have content creation as a job qualification, and yet you need to be able to quickly jump in and create content in whatever the role is. It could be a social media coordinator position, it could be an email marketing position, it could even be a digital advertising role. You need to be able to jump in and create content in some sort of form. A couple of these other, social media campaigns, being able to monitor trends, those are common as well. But for me, the big thing is that, analytics is always going to be among the top. It is generally a pretty common thing. It's always one of the last things listed. You have your core elements of the position, and then you also have to be able to analyze and report on your performance, and all these things. Very data-driven industry, as we all know. And now content marketing is there. And yet, if you look at qualifications, yes, experience with analytics is critical. Organization, project management, very important. Search engine optimization randomly is cropping up in positions that don't even relate to SEO. But there's no direct correlation to content marketing in the qualifications listing, which tells me that hiring managers are looking for unicorns. I think we've all have seen that. They're looking for somebody that can do everything. But they also are adding content marketing experience and content creation abilities because they know that these positions and these teams, everybody needs to be able to step in and create content, because the ability to create good content is something that is not often left to one person. It is usually a team approach. Content marketing strategies are hard to come by. They're hard to develop. And so you end up with the execution being really a team thing. Another thing that I'm not gonna, that's not super, super relevant, but it is relevant. 56 of the 88 of the 150 jobs I looked at required, were 5 years and less. Which, you had 17 jobs required 6 to 9 years. 15 jobs that I looked at required 10 plus years of experience, which doesn't seem right. I don't know why those jobs are tagged as entry level, but they were. But for me, seeing that there's 56 jobs that required between 3 to 5 years of experience was really shocking. And for me, when I write a job description, I just say, hey, I'm just looking for any experience whatsoever, as long as you know how to create content. That's what I say. And it's a content marketing internship. But when I look at this now, the fact that there were only 21 jobs on my list that didn't actually require at least a year of experience was, I don't even know what the word is to describe it. But what that tells me, I'm not here to bash hiring managers, even though I just did. I'm really here to show, how can we as educators help students get to that 3 to 5 years? How can we make it so that students who take the traditional path of going to school, maybe getting an internship, maybe they do a little freelancing, which I'm starting to do a little bit more with myself in terms of educating. How can we turn the classroom into one of those years of experience? As a hiring manager, I don't ask people that I'm interviewing how many years of experience you have. I ask about the specific experiences. And I like to think that most hiring managers ask that too, which is where we come in as educators in the classroom. Just some quick takeaways. Entry level doesn't mean what it did 10 years ago. When I entered the job market a dozen or so years, a little bit more than that, back in the early 2000s, entry level meant you're out of school, maybe you had an internship, and now you get a job. The end. That's not enough anymore. But it's also not about analytics anymore either. It's not just about that. It's about how you can turn those into a story. And what I mean, and I'll show you what I mean by that here in a minute. But the way I look at it is, if you are overseeing, say, social media, and you've had a bad year, right? You're the social media manager, numbers aren't growing like how you expected them to. You need to still be able to tell a positive story. You can't walk in and just say, guys, I was terrible. Everything is growing slowly and I'm not seeing any success. The people that have the greatest upward mobility are those that can take those, what they might say, like stagnant numbers, and turn them into true opportunities for future growth. How do we convey that in the classroom? And the third point here, content creation, absolutely critical. I talked about that before, but again, how do we teach that? You know, that's not something that you can just have them read a chapter. Maybe you could use the content marketing courseware, but it's not something that can be quickly taught. It's something that requires experience. It's something that requires application in the real world. It's not something, you know, as marketers and as marketing educators, we're in an ever-changing industry, and we're in an industry that requires true experience to really succeed. So how do we do that in the classroom? How do we do that in a semester? Maybe you have 11 weeks, maybe you have 7 weeks, maybe you have 15, depends. So I'm gonna glance at that poll really quick. A lot of people use guest speakers. Awesome. Some people use the students auditing real company content. That is also awesome. I've done that as well. Have those here. Sometimes you even have internship pipelines with businesses. I know I'm building relationships with companies as well, whether they're agencies or small businesses. You know, I try to always have a pipeline so that when students are looking for something, you know, I have a relationship with businesses where I can at least get them an in. So that to me, you know, is really, it's really great to see so many people are doing this. But, you know, how do we take that to the next level? You know, these 3 points in themselves are not, they're not going to translate to immediate experiences. So how do we do that? I like to start first off with the idea of having students create a portfolio. I teach a capstone course, and part of the big assignment is having students create an online portfolio. I actually have them do that in another course as well. And it's not just about creating a website, you know, building some representation of you, but the way that I look at it is the online portfolio is an extension of a resume that can help set the job seeker apart from those who don't. And the portfolio is not just something, this guy is in Australia. It's the best one I could find, besides, I guess, my own. But, you know, a portfolio isn't just a LinkedIn profile. It's not just, it's not a cover letter. It's something online, something tangible, where a job seeker and somebody who might have just graduated from college, or for example, can show their ability and their proactivity, whatever, to really build something on their own using the internet. The very first person I ever hired, the thing that set him apart, at least in the resume review process, was that he had an online portfolio. And this was almost 10 years ago. He was the only person that applied for my internship that had a portfolio. He ended up, you know, doing really well in the interview process. I hired him, one of the best employees I've ever had. You know, having a portfolio also allows students to be able to create their own content, to show their design ability, to put a face to the name. You know, having a face with the name goes a lot further than just having a resume with, you know, a couple of words on it. And the portfolios that really take the next step could even have a subscription button, and they can send communications to them. For me, this doesn't only give students a leg up, but it's a great way to teach a course, to bring in together something like a digital marketing essentials course, a digital marketing introduction course. Something like Squarespace, Wix, Weebly. I mean, you could build a website without any coding knowledge, and you can just focus on the big digital marketing and marketing principles, concepts that you would teach in a class. And for me, I actually used it in a UX design course as well, where I would grade students based on, you know, accessibility, the clear navigation, things like that students building a portfolio without any direction might not think about. But in a course like this, or even in an entry-level intro to digital marketing course, really provides you, the educator, with an opportunity to see how much students have really paid attention and how well they can apply the stuff that they've learned. The one thing I will, warning I will say is students usually need a lot of help with this. Those who have never, done anything online before. Generally, from what I've seen, about 10 to 20% will need a little bit of additional support. But I also use it as an opportunity to create my own content. I'll do a walkthrough of different major website builders. And sometimes too, Weebly has a free website builder option. And the way that I look at it is they need to have a free option. So Weebly is one way. I think Squarespace, you can get an extended trial. There's a bunch of other platforms that will allow you to build an online portfolio specifically for free. So that's kind of where I wanted to start. But this can be applied in just about any digital marketing positions or digital marketing courses. You can adjust it and adjust how you score it based on what it is that you are teaching. When I think of really good online portfolios, I have some from the students that I had. I'm not going to share them here because I didn't ask them if I could share it. But I've to be perfectly honest, some of the best online portfolios I've seen are from the students in my own courses. And I think you'll be surprised too at how creative students can get when they are kind of put in a position to build their own brand in such a way that it will benefit them not only in a class, but also in their professional brand. The next example I have is reporting to real companies. And I see several people responded that they already have students auditing companies, which is great. I do this in every course that I have that's an intro or social media course. And it's great because you have students who actually have to look at real numbers. They deal with a real business, and it really takes social media or web design or whatever it is, the course that you're teaching. It takes those learnings and applies them to a real world scenario. But going back to the big job responsibilities that I noticed, the thing I've recently added is that they need to present it to the company themselves. To me, that's the difference. Historically, I'd always have students break into groups, go find a company that will give them access to their web analytics, to their social media analytics, do a review, and then they turn it into me. I look at it, give them a grade at the end. But now I am at a point where I have students doing all of that, but now they're not they're sharing it with me so I can grade it. But what's just as important is how they present it to the company and what the company says back to me. So that brings into focus the ability to visualize data, the ability to hone in on KPIs, and the ability to share the bad news without being critical, demeaning, or overly negative. And that's an interesting proposition because that's something that college students inherently probably have never had to do before, where they haven't been in the spot where they've said, hey, man, they've been really, really bad on Twitter. We think they need to totally shift focus. How do you turn that into an opportunity rather than a negative? And the ability to report on all of these is something that may not seem overly digital marketing-esque, but at the same time, that is a huge part of digital marketing jobs today. So for those of you who have students that are doing that, I would see what happens when they present it to the actual companies. I found in my last semester, when I first started doing this, students approached the report very differently if they knew they had to present it to the company. They always took a more visual approach. It was I just felt the presentations were prepared a lot better than if it was just for me, and they didn't look at it as a class anymore. It was no longer about this is a class project. It was this is a project for a business. So for me, that's, that was a big difference I saw. I see a question from Matt. How do I manage privacy issues when I require students to create a public portfolio? So in that case, if students don't want to share anything publicly, they can create it without making it public and just share their content with me. They are more than welcome to do that. And honestly, most students do end up doing that because they don't get to a point where it's public facing, which is okay. As long as I can see the stuff, I don't really, I don't need anybody else to see it. But then at least they put themselves in a position where if they do want to show any content publicly, they can. And also, I don't grade portfolios on the content. I grade it on the way that they build it out. I do. And the way that I set it up is if it's going to be a private site, whether it's Weebly, Wix, which is kind of time consuming, or even Squarespace, we'll set it up where the only way that you can see it is by logging in. And so we'll have it, we come up with a way where, their content is not out there for public consumption. And no, I don't require headshots, by the way, photos. But that example did look kind of cool when I looked it up. And then Jeff has a question. Do students have a hard time finding and getting companies? Oh, yes, they often do. I often have I'll do actually an outreach on LinkedIn every semester. By the way, if I encourage you to, connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with you all and see all the great work that you all are doing. And I'll try to connect with people if I can find you guys. But what I do at the beginning of every semester, I do a call out to my connections and I say, hey, I have students that are looking to audit companies. If anybody is willing to share their analytics, web and social, just send me a message and I'm happy to connect you. You get a free digital marketing audit out of it from some students, and it doesn't require more than a couple of conversations with some students. And I've done that now 3 times. And every time I've gotten 3 to 4 different companies that have, offered, and it's been 3 to 4 different companies every time, which I think has been interesting. Because I've also had the same companies come back and say, hey, I'd like to do it again sometime. But for me, I'm developing this pool of businesses. Generally, they're people that are colleagues of mine, individuals that I've worked with in the past. So they're businesses that I know pretty well. But it's always helpful because, I had a class with 50 students last semester. That was 11 groups because I had 4 or 5 people and a bunch of student movement. So yeah, I had 5 groups that couldn't find a company. So thankfully, when I did that outreach, I had just enough where the businesses would come to me and say, hey, we're happy to do this. And I could connect everybody. Usually in terms of benchmarks, what I always tell the students is the place to start is get a holistic understanding of the business. You need to really know what it is that you are reviewing. Are they B2B? Are they B2C? What are their KPIs? If they don't have KPIs, what do you think they should be? And depending on what the course is and what I have the students doing, I will have them look, it becomes more of an exercise in really understanding a company and a brand. Because, okay, what are they doing on social? Is it working? Is it not working? How is the website functioning? Is the website doing what it should be doing? What are the goals? And usually, assuming the students do all these steps, they generally will come to a point where it needs to be a comparison. It becomes, and I say it needs to be at least 30 days. So maybe it's the good part about having a semester. Usually I'll say, okay, I want you to measure the next 30 days against 30 days after that. Or if it's a truncated semester, they'll take 30 days within the course and then look at what came before. The good thing is most companies are still using Google Analytics. And if they're not, they're using HubSpot, both, which I'm very well versed in. And I do have students tentatively learn both of those in most of my courses so that they at least know enough to get around and to find the numbers that they need. These are companies that are willing to share their data, their web data. Not all companies are, but generally when the course begins, I will tell students like, hey, you want to look at small businesses, look at restaurants, look at retail stores. Don't look for franchises, don't look for chains, don't look at 100 employee businesses that are startups that, have their data being, scrutinized every day. You need to find companies that are looking for help, that could use the help, that may not even have a marketing person. And for me, as an educator and as one who's been in their position before doing that, is assuming that they can, that they're willing to go out and talk to people. It's usually pretty easy to find. My campus at Wayne State is in the middle of Detroit. There's a bazillion restaurants, a ton of places, yoga studios. Sometimes they'll even, work with a certain department of the university who has their own web presence. That's also an option. The possibilities are pretty good. And I will also say a lot of times it ends up being a company that a student in the group already works for, which I am okay with. Because even if it's the student that's doing all the social media, that's fine. They're reviewing their own performance, which they probably had not done before up until that point. So thank you for all those questions. If you still have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. I'll try to get them as we go. The final part here the final way to really make the classroom a resume builder is to build professional social media accounts. This does go back to the privacy issue where sometimes students don't want to show their face on social. This is my YouTube shorts. And it's pretty interesting. I tested some YouTube shorts. I don't like YouTube shorts. I'm back on TikTok sharing marketing stuff, just as an aside. But another thing that I'll do if the class is small enough and if the content of the course is significant and related enough, is I will have them build a social media presence over the course of the semester. They can use themselves, they can make up a brand, they can do whatever they want. But there are certain benchmarks that they will need to meet throughout the course of the semester. The idea is that they'll start on a platform or a channel, whatever it is. Sometimes I give them the option. Sometimes if it's a video marketing course, for example, it's got to be YouTube. And they will need to consistently create content from start to finish. This gives them a great resume builder so that at the end they can say, yeah, I did, I created and built up a YouTube channel over the last 4 months. And as part of this course and learned X, Y, and Z. I have students follow each other's accounts if possible. And then I'll have discussions online. A lot of you have online courses. A lot of times I'll have grades each week where students will post their experiences in creating content. Was it a challenge? Was it easy? Are you getting views? Are you getting followers? If not, how does that make you feel? Does it make you not want to create more content? Does it keep you motivated? And I see very candid answers. I see students, their responses are very honest, and I really enjoy seeing this subjective approach that they take to it. And from a content creation perspective, being able to create something on a regular basis at regular intervals, building a brand, because that's a part of the course, really gets students in a mindset that is something that they probably haven't done before. I also find it interesting. I always end up with one influencer in my course in every class. They don't have millions of followers, but they'll have 10,000, 20,000. And so I will expect them to really be in a good position. And yet, interestingly enough, sometimes they're the ones that struggle the most because they are put into a spot where they're not creating the content that they've always been comfortable with. But then again, that too is very representative of what you would do if you get a job working for a business where maybe you get hired by a logistics company and you're expected to post a YouTube video twice a week about some content, some piece of the industry. That might not be the most interesting thing, but as a content creator, you were hired for that. You need to be able to pull together some compelling content that creates value. If we go back just to wrap things up, because I want to give time for questions as well, and please keep sending the questions in here. I look back at the jobs report that I did, and I look at the two big things that we can do as educators for our students to be better prepared for the job market and to take things from a class and put them onto the resume as experience. One is the analytics acumen. Understanding analytics programs is one thing. Being able to understand metrics, that's another thing. But being able to take those numbers, visualize them into a report form, and present them to a business, that is something that is rarely, if ever, done. And most applicants for these entry-level jobs probably have never done before. It gives these students a tangible experience and something that they can share, whether it be there's just an anecdote in the interview process or something to put on their online portfolio. It's something that will set them apart. Being able to say as an entry-level digital marketer, yes, I have presented X, Y, and Z to this company's leadership. That's impressive to a hiring manager like myself. Even if I'm not hiring an analytics person, even if maybe I'm just hiring a content creator, the fact that a candidate or a set of candidates can actually can tell me that they've done that shows me that they understand the business side. Being able to say, yes, I've understood this company's business. I understand their value proposition. I understand all of this. And for me, it's really stunning to be able to see how far they've come. And finally, content creation. Being able to create content that doesn't overtly promote a brand. That's something that a lot of students, they eventually can learn. But our inherent ideas, our inherent thoughts as content creators is just to promote a brand. If you say, yes, you're going to be our content creator and our company creates, we are a software company that has an email marketing platform. The first thing that an inexperienced content creator is going to think of is, how can I create content that promotes this, that shows how great it is? When in reality, that's not what great content marketing does. How do you get people thinking about a brand without overly hitting them over the head with it? That is also what the content marketing courseware does. I encourage you to check it out, and you could pair it with digital marketing essentials of social media marketing, SEO, anything like that. But for me, content creation, it's promoting a brand without promoting the brand, understanding a target audience and the content that resonates with them, but also, first and foremost, is creating value. That gets lost, and that gets lost with students a lot. And when I did that social media thing I talked about last semester, I was watching their content and I was like, I'm not enjoying this. Like, why isn't this? You're supposed to be creating value. And I'm thinking, I'm not the target audience. That's fine, but I don't know how the target audience would derive value from this. And that is a huge takeaway for students of all levels. So, being able to turn your classroom into tangible experiences that can be put on a resume and better prepare students for a career. To me, I look at digital marketing courses as now as not just testing understanding. It's not a math class. It's not an English class. It's preparing marketers for their careers. And I look at it too as, how do I get the students to be truly involved? That's what the ProfCon session entrepreneurship is about. But the more the students can get into it and get involved and feel like they're doing something that is a true resume builder, that's the difference. And that's where I have seen, that's been the difference between the courses that I've taught that have been truly enjoyable, great experiences, and those that are just kind of average. So that wraps up my presentation. I do see a couple of questions here. Do I have a calendar or deck to share? I'll go back and pull. I do have several syllabi that I can grab, but I need to go in and make some adjustments to them just because they have sensitive information to the university. So I'll put some together. I'll send them over to Chad, and he can disseminate those. I've got 3 different lengths of syllabi in calendar. I got a 7-week course that I just did this summer. I got an 11-week course that I did in the winter, and I got a 14 or 15-week course at the same time. So, it varies. And yes, I do have students critique each other's work. That's a good question that you ask. Specifically on social media, I do that a lot. And just so everybody knows, the content marketing syllabus is really more specific to the content marketing courseware. It doesn't integrate kind of what I just went over. I will share that with Chad separately. He can disseminate that after the fact, just so you know. But yeah, I do have students critique each other's work. The way I usually do it is, I don't know what LMS people use. I use Canvas, and I've also used D2L Brightspace. And on both of those, I will have students respond to a prompt, and then I will have them respond to other students and say, hey, I really liked your content on this. I try not to let it be too negative. I try to keep it somewhat upbeat and positive. Because I'm not looking for trolling. I'm not looking for really bad negative critiques, but I do look and they're like, okay, respond to another student for whom you've enjoyed their content so far, and if you can try to provide them another, what's another piece of content that you'd like to see them create, for example. So sometimes when I get to like that middle half of that 50 to 60% of the semester, I find students usually are losing steam with content creation. They need a pick-me-up, and that is where I have students provide new ideas to their classmates. That usually helps jumpstart it a little bit. And for me, I've always found that students have been very complimentary of each other, and they're great at boosting each other up with their content. I've seen a lot of students, taking a kind of a hands-off approach to class sometimes. But I've also noticed that when they are in a position to share feedback with others, it's really strong, and it's very powerful. So yeah, that's kind of what I do there. And I know I see another one here. Chad, were there other questions that you saw that I missed so far?
No. You pretty much answered most of them. Matt just came in with one, if you want to read that real quick.
Yeah. Thanks, Jeff, whichever Jeff you were. Thanks for coming. So yeah, Matt, for the analytics portion of the course, I really just stick to things that the KPIs. What are the most important numbers for growth? And the content marketing courseware digs into that a little bit, as does the digital marketing essentials text. We don't go deep into stuff. We don't dive into the Excel, into the pivot tables, but we do go into visualizations, and we do look at, okay, how can we quickly and efficiently measure the most important analytics that are key for growth, but then also how do we visualize those in such a way that the higher ups, for example, or even our team, can consistently check back and monitor our performance. Because being able to analyze your own performance, evaluate it, and make adjustments is really critical, and really one of the big teachings when it comes to especially a social media course. Now, for the non-business school courses, I try to approach analytics from the standpoint of I look at it from a bigger picture, I guess, and I say, okay, what is the end goal of this content? Why are you creating it? First off, are you trying to improve a brand's awareness? Are you trying to improve a brand equity? And then from there, maybe you use numbers. I prefer using numbers even in the couple of comms courses I've taught. What I will do is I will look at numbers specific to that are more about the quality. What's the average run time? What's the average viewing time, for example, on this video? Oh, it's only 6 seconds. What do you think is happening in that 6 seconds? Are people not finding what they want? Is it a slow lead in? Then we can really parse the content that the students have created and figure out where either the value is dropping off or where they are reaching that peak value. So that way it's becoming less of a numbers game and more of a quality content game where we can look at it and say, okay, we're noticing at this point, that's where we're seeing some struggles. So I hope that answers the question. I know I've been teaching in business school for a long time, and as somebody who in undergrad was not at all business school, I'm an English and comm guy at heart. So, I try to look at things through that lens as much as I can. I see Joseph's got a session on dashboards. That's great. The interesting things is, dashboards are great. Being able to utilize those, every business wants them. The thing that I find really interesting is when students are presenting to a business, they are, they're sharing data, they're sharing visualizations. Every business is going to respond differently. I've sat in on a few, and there'll be somewhere the business people just sit back and they just go, okay, what do you got? And then at the end, they're just like, okay, thanks, the end. I always have them give me the feedback on the presentation, but sometimes they're very hands off. But I am looking for businesses, and sometimes I'm going to start prompting them to say, hey, if something doesn't make sense, stop them and ask them questions. Like, I want this to simulate a real world situation. And in my experience, growing up in the private sector, having a CEO who is from DC and has like a lot of experience, with being on that end, I really, learned a lot in terms of, okay, I need to create something that can be shared succinctly. I need to share visualizations, not too much text, really trying to get into the mindset of those higher ups. And then, like a lot of you are probably familiar with, when they look at their phone, you lost them. And there becomes all sorts of smaller elements here that I personally did not learn until I'm in my mid 20s and learning on the fly and often failing on the fly. How do you minimize the risk? How do you minimize that potential negative blowback for your students? And for me, these working with these companies is really a great way to at least get them acclimated and getting them that first exposure. Because if a student walks in at age 24 to a boardroom presenting to a bunch of C-suite individuals on stuff, if that entry level employee isn't ready, there could be some bad things that come out of it. Okay.
Awesome. I'll go ahead and hop in here real quick and answer just a housekeeping item from, I'm going to guess it's Faisal. Yes, we will be sending the recording to all registrants, as well as any resources or things that were shared throughout this presentation. So be on the lookout for that within the next day or two, I'd say, because we got to get it all set up for you guys. So we'll get that to you as soon as possible.
Yeah, Kelly, I see that you have marketing in one school and advertising in another. That is fascinating. I think content development you can make the argument for both, of course, as I think you're alluding to. When I've taught in the advertising course, I've found content marketing to be critical because unless you're dealing with an impulse buyer, you are often, advertising is one of many steps, as we know, through the buyer's journey. And being able to share with them different types of content throughout that buying process is very interesting and very necessary. Just having advertising on its own is one thing. Being able to take them through the whole journey is another. How do you create that consistent voice? How do you have these elements where you can keep them moving, and how do you get them to become a lead and eventually a purchaser? So I do think if I had to choose one, Kelly, I would say it would be more in marketing, but I think that's an obvious one. But I see your point on the advertising. honestly, I would say, I don't think a content marketing per se is the topic in advertising, but it's more of the rest of the buyer's journey and how, so you've launched some ads. Now what? You got somebody off of Google through some paid search, and you got them to your website. Now, how are you going to get them? How are you going to build up that brand to the point where they are comfortable making a purchase, or filling out a lead form, or what have you? Is it downloading an ebook? Is it registering for a webinar like this? Is it something else? There's a lot of different action items that can come out of advertising from the world of content. Journalism and business. Yeah, that too. A lot of I've worked with a lot of journalists who have made the move. I don't want to say move, but they're now in a content marketing role. And I love working with journalists because they are all about the content and the story and the narrative, which is great. Then if all I have to do is come in and put a business twist on that and get them to create this content so that we can convert users, to me, that's the best case scenario. I'd rather have that than the opposite, where I need to show people how to create value for the reader. So these have all been really good points. Very interesting, Courtney. You're teaching an equine marketing course with marketing courses. I had a student last semester who was her project, her brand was a riding stable, and seeing some of the creative content that she came up with was really fascinating. And to me, as an educator, that's my favorite part, is being able to see all these different businesses that they will develop and all these different brands. And I try to spend a little bit of time with each student one-on-one if the class is small enough, and at least spend a few minutes trying to give them a little jump start on the content, because I think the content marketing courseware is great, and there's 200 plus examples, so that will get them to a certain point. But sometimes they do need that one-to-one 10 minutes that can really jumpstart them and get them thinking. So, I hope this has been educational for people. I hope, very niche. The niche is a great piece too. Great idea is get as targeted as possible. I share this kind of stuff on LinkedIn, so I'll be, if I've connected with you already, great. If not, I'll try to look for you. And I appreciate you all coming in for the really fulfilling session. I'm going to go check out some more of Idaho now and see some of the hills and whatever else is here. This is my last day. And thank you all again. Thanks, Chad.
Yeah, well, thank you, Nick. This has been really awesome. This was a very interactive webinar, I think, for everyone. So thank you, everyone. I will say a couple plugs. Like I said, we will send the recordings to you all, but if you want to check out Nick's courseware bundle, we'll go ahead and share that real quick. If you haven't already had a chance and are interested, we do have that along with a simulation for content marketing. So go ahead and check it out and see if it's for you, see if it's right for you. You can schedule a demo as well. And thank you everyone for being here. This was awesome. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.